the Chi-Town experience on the flight. Let me go tune in to KIEQ on the mic. He gon' make sure we get our news and highlights. When you get on YouTube, you better hit the like.
With Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears making two big trades in the last 24 hours by acquiring Jonah Jackson from the Los Angeles Rams and Joe Thuney from the Kansas City Chiefs, everyone is now speculating that the Chicago Bears are locked in with drafting this top prospect in the 2025 NFL Draft. Hey, what's going on, Bears fans? Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of KIEQ on the Mic, the podcast all about the Chicago Bears. As always, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. So, Bears fans, hey, it's true what we always say, Ryan Poles never sleeps. He has been absolutely cooking over the last 24 hours. First and foremost, just yesterday, he traded a 6th-round pick in this year's NFL Draft to the Los Angeles Rams in exchange for Jonah Jackson. And then the very next day, he traded a 2026 4th-round pick in return for All-Pro guard Joe Thuney. And both of these moves bolster the Chicago Bears offensive line. Obviously, the familiarity with Jonah Jackson and Ben Johnson is huge. And obviously, the familiarity that Ryan Poles has not only with the Kansas City Chiefs, but Joe Thuney made too much sense. And I'm not sure how he pulled it off. Obviously, Kansas City has their cap issues. They weren't able to pay a guy like Joe Thuney. He has 1 year left on his contract. He is 32 years old, but he brings massive amount of championship experience here to the Chicago Bears. I feel like adding a guy like Thuney just changes the culture here in Chicago. And then, of course, Jeremy Fowler has also reported as well that the Chicago Bears are not done. Their plans is to target a center in free agency. So, of course, Drew Dahlman from the Atlanta Falcons. Keep a close eye at Evan Brown as well, a guy that has the versatility to play guard and center. And he also has a connection with Ben Johnson dating back to his time with the Detroit Lions. So it seems that Ryan Poles finally gets it. He is finally building the trenches the right way. I have no problems whatsoever that he's giving up draft capital because it's smart business. A 6th-round pick for Jonah Jackson and then a 4th-round pick in next year's NFL Draft for an All-Pro guard and Joe Thuney. And you know, protecting Caleb Williams was the main priority this offseason for the Chicago Bears. So if they can land Drew Dahlman or Evan Brown, this would be a really successful offseason for Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears as they finally build the offensive line the right way. So obviously, like I just mentioned, Ryan Poles and the Bears have been super busy with multiple trades over the last 24 hours. And now there is a whole lot of buzz, not only after these trades, but actually coming out of the scouting combine just this past week. About who the Chicago Bears would actually be targeting in the 2025 NFL Draft. So there's a lot of people talking around, and the main buzz is that not only Ben Johnson, Ryan Poles, but the entirety of the Chicago Bears organization are locked in with drafting Boise State's running back Ashton Jeanty. Draft insider Ryan Fowler of the Draft Network asked around Indianapolis about what could happen in April. One constant source of discussion was a belief that Chicago was zeroing in on the Heisman finalist Ashton Jeanty, running back out of Boise State. He said this, Bears fans: Chicago locked in on Ashton Jeanty. The core talent surrounding quarterback Caleb Williams is expected to improve even further in the coming months. While adding pieces up front continues to be a focus on the pro side of things, adding Boise State running back Ashton Jeanty at number 10 overall was one of the more common topics of conversation at the Combine. With wideouts DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, and tight end Cole Kmet already in place, along with the addition of head coach Ben Johnson in the headset, Jeanty was a common player team match that was discussed throughout the week by a variety of different folks. While things, of course, can and will change for teams, the historically productive ball carrier could very soon find himself in the NFC North taking handoffs from the 2024 number 1 overall pick. Overall, Bears fans, people shouldn't really be overly shocked about this buzz or growing buzz that Ashton Jeanty can be a real possibility for the Chicago Bears at number 10 overall, especially after the additions of Jonah Jackson and Joe Thuney, and you got your two guards figured out. Now, if the Chicago Bears can go into free agency next week and sign a guy like Drew Dahlman or even get Evan Brown at center, you're talking about a massive improvement on the interior of that offensive line. Of course, when you're adding to that, Ben Johnson made it very clear that he wants to augment the running back position. He wants to improve that unit. I think he is fine with DeAndre Swift, but DeAndre Swift is not a workhorse back here in Chicago. He is looking for a running back that can carry the load 20 to 25 times a game, and that's exactly what Ashton Jeanty would be here in Chicago. I think we can all agree that Ashton Jeanty is the best running back, or at least one of the best running backs in the 2025 NFL draft. Obviously, when you look at Ben Johnson's time in Detroit, they did the same thing in Detroit by drafting Jahmyr Gibbs, not trying to compare Jahmyr Gibbs to Ashton Jeanty, but obviously the Detroit Lions, took a risk and invested heavily in Jahmyr Gibbs in a couple of drafts ago, and it benefited them, right? And Ben Johnson wants to run the football. Ryan Poles and the Bears took care of some massive needs on the interior offensive line by adding Jonah Jackson and now Joe Thuney, and the expectations to still add Drew Dahlman or Evan Brown. Now they want to be able to run the football, and they need the proper running backs in place in order to do that and really help Caleb Williams take the next level. They want to run the football. Ben Johnson has made that very clear. If you add Ashton Jeanty and pair him with DeAndre Swift, you have now two very capable backs here in Chicago, one being your power workhorse back in Ashton Jeanty, and another one being more of your shifty back in certain situations in DeAndre Swift. I feel like they would make a really good 1-2 punch here in Chicago. Here is my thing, Bears fans. As much as I am a fan of Ashton Jeanty, and I do think he could be a realistic possibility at number 10 overall, we have to remember, just because we got Joe Thuney and just because we got Jonah Jackson, they are necessarily on the older side. When you're looking at Joe Thuney, he's 32 years old, has only missed 2 games in his really, really great 9-year NFL career. And then when you look at Jonah Jackson, he's 28 years old and coming off a season where he was dealing with shoulder injuries, right? So the Chicago Bears, in terms of building their offensive line, is certainly not done. There's a lot of Bears fans, including myself, that are saying that now that you got your guards in place, you go into free agency and get your center in Drew Dahlman, you get your center in Evan Brown, one of the two, and then you could still go in NFL draft and leverage the number 10 overall pick by still selecting Will Campbell, or maybe Armand Membu out of Missouri, maybe Kelvin Banks out of Texas. There's a lot of Bears fans saying that, hey, continue to invest in the trenches, because not only do we need good quality starters, we need good quality depth at those positions as well. Maybe you get a guy like Armand Membu and he replaces, Braxton Jones at left tackle, right? And now your offensive line is really set up for the long-term success. But there's also another half of Bears fans saying, hey, take Ashton Jeanty. You have really invested heavily in your offensive line via trade over the last couple of days. You go into free agency, add another high quality center, maybe another backup at guard. Like, that can be a good quality backup at guard as well. And then you're set up to go into the NFL draft and take the best player available. If that's Ashton Jeanty, you take Ashton Jeanty. If that is Will Campbell, you take Will Campbell. If that's Armand Membu, you take Armand Membu. If that is James Pierce out of Tennessee, you take James Pierce out of Tennessee. That is what I really love about what Ryan Poles, Ben Johnson, and the Chicago Bears have done over the last couple of days, is that they have leveraged themselves to be really successful and really go into the NFL draft and take the best player available. So overall, there is no argument that Ashton Jeanty is a true baller. Once again, when you look at his college, just last season at Boise State, he came close to breaking a rushing record in college set by Barry Sanders. He really carried that Boise State program into the college football playoffs. And once again, Johnson wants a physical, fundamental, and poised players, especially in his running back position. And Jeanty really checks all those boxes for the Chicago Bears. So it doesn't surprise me that, Ben Johnson and Ryan Poles, even the Chicago Bears organization, would be really interested in Ashton Jeanty. I'm not sure if they're actually zeroing in on Jeanty at this point. We still have a couple of months until the NFL draft is actually going to happen. But it wouldn't surprise me whatsoever if they, went into free agency, once again, got Drew Dahlman or Evan Brown, and then maybe got like Khalil Mack or Josh Sweat, right? And now you can go in the NFL draft and say, hey, if we can go in the draft taking the best player available, and Jeanty is the best player available, I think that would be an okay scenario at number 10 overall. But at the same time, I'm also okay with really investing offensive line as much as possible, just due to the fact that Thuney is a good player. He's all pro, future Hall of Fame guard, but he's also 32. And, Jonah Jackson's upgrade here on offensive line. He's 28. He's younger, but he's also been dealing with some injuries over the last couple of years. So I don't think I want Ryan Poles to also get complacent in terms of building the offensive line and the defensive line in the trenches. So it's going to be a really interesting scenario to see what Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears do in the next couple of weeks and how they really leverage themselves with that number 10 overall pick in the 2025 NFL draft. So overall, Bears fans, before I let you guys go, let me ask you guys this. At number 10 overall in the 2025 NFL draft, and this is hypothetically speaking, the Bears got Joe Thuney. They got Jonah Jackson. Let's say they signed Drew Dahlman. Let's say they sign an edge rusher in free agency. With the number 10 overall pick, do you believe the hype that Ryan Poles, Ben Johnson, and the Chicago Bears are all in on Ashton Jeanty at number 10? And would you be okay with that pick at number 10? Let me know down below in the comment section. But as always, make sure you guys continue to hit that subscribe button and the notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. Make sure you follow me on all my social media platforms. And make sure you share this episode of KIEQ on the Mic with every single Bears fan that you know. But other than that, be back for all new Bears podcasts right here on KIEQ on the Mic. Thanks, guys. And as always, bear down.
You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't KIEQ on the mic. You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't KIEQ on the mic. You can go and subscribe, cause I be on it right. You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't KIEQ on the mic.